Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking way is that a gimme, right?
I kind of feel like Eeyore today, only because it's like, oh, it's a football's over edition of Gas with Gresh and Anik. I mean, you wait all year for football to come along, and then it zooms by like that, and then here's your first weekend without football, and yeah, sports just feels different, doesn't it, Jay?
Does. You know, I'm more sour about the football season over than I am the Patriots making it to the big game and not winning it. You know, for those of us, and there are millions of us that do put football on a pedestal, maybe whether it's NFL or college, I think maybe NFL, but where we put it on a pedestal and everything else pales in comparison. You want to get me juiced about the Celtics, Bruins, and Red Sox today on February 17th? I wish you all the best of luck. It just, you know, we've talked about the NBA season's too fucking long, right? You know, the Bruins are a nice story, but we got a few weeks off for the Olympics, and, you know, it just is what it is right now. It's this sort of lull, but March Madness creeping. We'll figure it out.
Hey, let me ask you this. Where have the Olympics fit into your sort of sports life over the last 10 days or so? The reason I ask is because I think when they've got it on in prime time, and if you're really following along, you know the results, but you want to maybe see the performance, right? Or I think a lot of people, if they're used to just having on an NBA game or an NHL game or something like that, you know, we're normally a like background sport house, meaning like it's just on. That's all it's been for us in the Olympics is it's just been on, and maybe we end up catching something. How does it fit in for you? Because I know the Olympics, when it comes to kids and women, they may view the Olympics very differently than we do as regular team sports loving men.
You know, it's been on in the background of my house. I've been less involved in this Olympics probably than any prior. You know, I think I joked with you last show about like the luge, like you're watching any of the luge. Like if I see a bobsled on my screen, you're going to get me looking up, you know, like the figure skating was on the other night. And, you know, my wife is, and my daughter's like, the figure skating's on, right? And then, you know, we gather around for like a few minutes and we're just not interested, right? And it was the couples, and a lot of them weren't necessarily giving great performance. It just didn't move the needle for me at all, Gresh. Like I couldn't care less right now. I mean, I guess if the hockey, when it comes down to it, and some of those competitive medal games, maybe I'll peek at it. But for right now, I couldn't care less, if I'm being honest.
Now, let me ask you this too, because I've realized this for some people. I actually had a guy call me on my Mad Dog radio show on Saturday, and big, thick Louisiana accent, right? And he goes, I just ain't got no connections to the winter sports. And I'm like, oh, okay, this guy grew up in Louisiana. That I can understand.
Yep.
I also think too that people connect to the Summer Olympics more because it's a lot of run, jump, and throw. My fat ass couldn't ski jump to save my life. If I had to do what those people did, I'd be dead. Right. So, you know, or go on what did they call that? The monoluge or something was the woman from America, the one yesterday. Again, same thing. I'd be dead. I can't run real well, but at one point in time, my fat ass ran in life. So maybe there's a little bit of a different connection. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Maybe, you know, I look, like speed skating moves the needle for me. I think it's more about the time in which we live rather than my sort of more interested in summer than winter. You know, it's like I got everything DVR'd. It's not appointment TV like I'm going to go back and watch it at all. There aren't even certain events I'm looking for. Like I stumbled upon the speed skating the other night. But yes, and I was watching the American, who I think she had won in the past or won another gold in a different event. But I knew I would have already known had she won. to your point, where, because it's on delay, but there aren't really any stars. With Lindsey Vonn, would that move the needle for me? Maybe a bit.
There's no rival either, right? Like when we were kids, we were propagandized into thinking that we should hate the Russian athletes because we hate them because of the Cold War. Now if there's a great Russian forward, we want him on the Bruins. So let's be real about, sort of where we have evolved. And I don't think the Olympics suck per se. It's just not for me. There haven't been enough emerging storylines. There's no even great battle. Remember the Summer Olympics that was built around Dan versus Dave, and the whole Nike campaign for what were they? The triathletes or something like that. And then I think they both shit themselves when it came to the Olympics. So, but they built the ad campaign about it. We remembered it. There's none of that really going on right now. The hockey, what really sucks, Jay, is that last year we probably got a better taste of a different version of Olympic hockey with the way they did the All-Star game in the NHL and had the Four Nations deal.
Awesome.
Versus, yeah, right? Like, I get it that we might get USA versus Canada, and that might be one great game. But, boy, they really re-energized All-Star Weekend. And now, unfortunately, for the NHL, it kind of takes some of the piss out of it, unfortunately, because of the Olympics.
Yeah, and when I talk about it being a different time, it's like with these cell phones and all the content that's out there, I find myself constantly feeling like I'm behind or I'm missing things that I should be, whether it's, am I supposed to DVR all the Celtics games and watch all the regular season Celtics games, right? Right. I feel like I'm sort of missing out. So as I don't have time to watch Joe Mazzulla's Celtics every night, you think I'm going to find time for the Olympics. It's just not that special for me. But my barber, his daughter is a competitive figure skater, and I think she's 10 years old. So for them, whole different experience.
No question about it. That's why the Olympics are very different. When people wonder, why does NBC pay so much money for it? Because it's just not dudes watching it. Anyway, let's get rolling here. I was just kind of curious as to sort of where the Olympics were sort of fitting into your sports life. I can't believe that we're sitting here. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown were drafted in like 17 and 18, I think, back to back,
16,
like that.
17. Yep.
Something like that. Right. Okay. So we're now at almost year 10.
Right.
Of this horse shit. And I hate to say it, but Jaylen Brown leads us down this road. It feels like once a year with something where we question what in the world is up with those two. So JB, he sort of, deflected rumors recently that an Instagram post comparing the team's current and past success was sort of a, hey, look at what we're doing with me as the leader type thing. Brown did the whole clarified that it was about the team's achievement and proud to where they're at right now, which is second in the Eastern Conference. Jayson Tatum is trying to throw a little bit of water on the fire that was his return. Is your antenna up, or is this just NBA drama?
My antenna is not up at all. And find me the quote, find me what he actually said that is in any way a negative connotated statement. I just don't see it. I think these two superstars, and look, I did have the privilege to spend time with Joe Mazzulla sort of in an intimate setting, right? And he just talked about how ideal these two superstars are. They're both somewhat introverted. They are both supremely humble, and they're both very poised, right? Do I think they click perfectly as friends? Not necessarily, but do I think there's animosity like Jordan and Pippen no way. I just don't see it. They need one another. Joe Mazzulla was so excited about the possibility of going into this season kind of without Tatum to sort of see what he can do. And we've seen a lot of coaches over the years overachieve with less talent. Even in Boston, Alex Cora does it every year. Brad Stevens did it. Look what Mike Vrabel just did. I mean, even Marco Sturm with the Bruins is doing it right now. So for me, it says more about the coaching staff and what they're doing. Look, to take nothing away from Jaylen Brown, but there's a reason why he's a max player. And those of us that really trust his game shouldn't be surprised at what we're seeing right now. But I believe that Joe Mazzulla can infiltrate Jayson Tatum right back into this. And this is much ado about nothing. That championship that they won together matters. I'm not going to be surprised if they stay together for many, many more years. I think we talked about the offseason. I know I'm long-winded here about
you're good.
They kept the right pieces. You know, they didn't get rid of any of those pieces because ultimately building around JB and JT is the plan and was the plan, is the plan, and should be the plan moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys together, you're not breaking them up unless they're literally fist fighting against each other, but they're nowhere near that. I think what this comes down to is, Jay, is that Jaylen Brown, it's perceived because of stuff like this with a Instagram post that can be, an Instagram post is like a text, right? You can't interpret tone, complete intention, things like that. So I don't know if Jaylen Brown just gets off on the, watch me make everybody dance type thing, or
good point.
Or is it the inferiority complex that I really do think this guy still carries, because Jayson Tatum gets talked about lovingly. Like, to me, in the mind of Jaylen Brown, the reaction for him coming back, if he were Jayson Tatum, would be different than the way it is with Jayson Tatum. Everybody is, everybody is sitting and waiting with bated breath, and it's, oh my God, when's he coming back? When's he coming back? And I think in JB's mind, it's, hey, do I get some flowers for getting this here? And whether that's right or wrong, it seems to be the way the guy feels. And he did clarify and say, hey, it's about the team and stuff like that. But there are too many of these instances with Jaylen Brown where it's left to be interpreted. And what's he really trying to say? So he sets himself up to get this kind of reaction.
But, the chip on his shoulder, which definitely exists, I don't think is in any way directed toward Jayson Tatum. And frankly, you won the finals MVP, Brown, and frankly, Tatum might have gotten my voting, but that was a nice bone that was thrown your way. It is what it is. Jayson Tatum has been all NBA first team, right? For a reason. And look, you could argue as a Celtics fan, they've done a great job being able to have these guys coexist and win a championship together.
Oh,
and
definitely.
I actually believe I'm hopeful that their best could be ahead of them, right? Maybe Jaylen Brown's development this year is exactly what needed to happen. But it's up to Joe Mazzulla to figure out how to make them better when Jayson Tatum comes back. And I think if you're in his mind, there's no doubt in his mind that he can make them, no matter how far they've overachieved, they will be better with Tatum. And I think he can put them in that position.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if there is a little bit of competitive tension, let's call it.
I agree.
Between Tatum and Brown. Because that's where I think you and I and Celtic fans, I think that's where we trust Joe Mazzulla to drive that, but not let it get out of control. You know what I mean?
Bingo.
To where it doesn't turn where there's animosity between the two. But if they're pushing each other, if they're competitive, if they're a little, if they're not perfect or a little prickly to each other each time, yes. You know what? That's not the worst environment to be in. As long as it isn't my ball. No, my ball. As long as Joe Mazzulla can control it, it's not the worst thing for Jaylen Brown to think, well, everybody thinks that Jay Tatum's better than me, so I'm going to go out and try to stick it up there. As long as it doesn't go away from the team goals, then that little bit of tension, I think, works. And I do think people miss that. But Jaylen Brown sets himself up for half of the people to say one thing and half of the people to say the other, and he'll look at it and try to split the reaction down the middle as to what he allegedly really truly meant, which we don't know. The one thing we know is that this is a guy a couple years ago that making the All-Star team and crossing over that bridge meant so much to him that he was crying. And now that he's one of the guys, They ask him about all of this, and then, he's like, well, this All-Star weekend really doesn't matter. It's about winning a championship. 4 years ago, it was as if he reached a level that Jayson Tatum already had, and it affected him so much that it brought him to tears. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the perception, I think, is changing even within the mind of Jaylen Brown, and hopefully getting more comfortable in realizing that he is a bona fide star.
And that's great stuff. And he should have a different mindset now. You know, it's interesting because neither one of these guys I would consider a selfish player. And the NBA right now, it's almost like you got to be a little selfish. There are times where Jaylen needs to just take it to the rack. Even in the postseason last year where we were wanting to just take it to the rim, just take it to the rim. And there are moments where Tatum absolutely has to be selfish and play a little bit of one-on-one basketball. So I actually think it's brilliant the way they've learned how to coexist. And I think for Jaylen Brown to be drafted a year before Tatum, but to not really have quite the dynamic skill set and have to work a little maybe harder for everything, but it's not as if Tatum hasn't been working too. So I actually think this is a beautiful thunderstorm in the middle of their career because I think it'll force them to reevaluate themselves. If Tatum had been healthy all this year, who knows what the offseason would have looked like if certain guys would have still been retained. So I think this was sort of that necessary Band-Aid ripoff in a way. I actually think this injury in a weird way could be a good thing moving forward because I think that it'll force them to look at themselves in different ways. But I believe in Brown and Tatum unequivocally.
Yeah, and I think when you have the people around them that you do, Derrick White, who we know can run the point and play some real good championship level defense. They add Vucevic in there, who I think is when Tatum gets back, Vucevic is the perfect center to be able to match with those guys. And then if you're Crazy Joe Mazzulla, and I say that with love because he is nutty, he'll be thinking of all the different ways he can mix and match and combo these guys up that he, going into the year, Mazzulla was in the lab. Hey, what can my combinations be? Who can I use? Stuff like that. Now he knows he can count on guys like Quetta and others. So you add Tatum into the mix. And then how does he decide to reshuffle the deck? I know they won't do this, but I wonder because I don't think they can sell him on it, right? If he's coming back. But boy, having Tatum as a guy coming off the bench who can give you 30 minutes, but you bring him in as the matchup or the spark. I know it sounds crazy.
I love everything you've said on the show today until that, but go ahead.
Well, no, but here's the reason why. If they're going to manage his minutes, which I think they might do, it's easier to do it bringing him off the bench to have maximum impact than it is to play him in the first quarter and then just play him in the fourth quarter. Like I do believe, Jay, that some of the objection recently from Tatum on the whole, hey man, I'm coming back, but don't expect me to be the same guy. I do think there is some truth to that. So yes, it sounds crazy. There's no question. But in the end, if you're managing 30 minutes, and you don't have to blow out a bunch of those in the first quarter, or you can get him in and out of there to where Tatum can start to feel comfortable, then you can have him for the final 5 minutes of the game, or at least it's easier to get him in the final 5 minutes of a game, which are the 5 minutes you really want him to play, but you can't take the other 25 out of the development.
It's great stuff, actually, and you sold me a little bit. And if you're going to bring him back a couple months before the postseason, maybe you do have that luxury. I think something will depend on the health, meaning, in warmups, is it best for him to sort of get right out there rather than have the legs sit on the bench? But I want to ask you a question about Vucevic. So when this move happened, right, for whatever reason, I kind of have looked at this Celtics season as a little bit of almost like a bye week, almost like taking a year off in a weird, silly way. Maybe I looked at it in the wrong way. And the Vucevic transaction really, to me, appeared to be mostly financial, to get under that second apron or the first apron. I don't really love Vucevic's game necessarily, but everybody, including you, talking about the fit with Tatum, perhaps. And so I guess I'm curious from your standpoint, how much of that move do you think was financial, and how much do you think this Celtics organization really believes in their ability to contend for a championship this year?
I think it was both, but it was the best trade Brad Stevens could make for the now, while also cleaning up the cap the way they needed to. And here's the other brilliant part of it is not only do they open up like now Vucevic, by the way, is on an expiring contract. Okay. So if you want to sign him, you got bird rights, and you'll end up having a draft pick, and you'll end up having, I think it's like a $14.1 million, veteran Schnabitz within the CBA. Basically, they can go get somebody that's worth a shit. How about we just put it that way? And the other part of it too is, I don't think that, Jay, I think people look at this Bill Chisholm and they're thinking, oh my God, he's cheap. Look what he's doing. No, he's resetting the number so that they can, if they want to, bring back Vucevic and have him on the roster and the guy you can add with the exception. Here's the other thing on a trade too. They created a $27 million trade exception. So you could absorb a player's salary and wrap the exception into it to where you might be able to get somebody you never really thought of. So I think what Brad Stevens did, Jay, he added the right, slow European for the middle of this team, but he also set the Celtics up arguably to get 3 players next year out of that trade, thinking that Chisholm has no problem spending money. They just wanted to reset the tax so that he can kind of move accordingly.
I love it. So Cody put in the chat, Draymond Green at the trade deadline. I've been talking about Draymond Green as a fit on this Celtics team. I'll tell you what. I'm not suggesting that I even know the possibility. It's probably far-fetched, but that particular fit on this particular team, I love it. You like it too, don't you?
Draymond Green? No.
Why?
At this point in his career, he's not worth the trouble. So let me give you a comparison. When New England brought Rodney Harrison in, same kind of instigator, Woody Woodpecker. That's how I view like guys like Harrison and guys like Draymond. Rodney was worth it for the years that he was in New England, was he not? I don't know if at this point, Draymond's everything else with Draymond would be worth it. Now, you give me that guy from 3 years ago on this team, and oh my God, they're about damn near unstoppable. I still don't know what he's got left.
The idea of him doing the dirty work and also being that sort of leadership presence, I feel as though it would be a great fit for him too. But your point's well taken. I think it may be a little bit late on that. And I also think, Brad Stevens would probably just smile if he was part of this conversation and just shake his head because he probably knows better. But that name
by the way, is Brad Stevens not the shrewdest mofo in the NBA? Has he made a bad deal? Seriously.
Well, and I really loved him as a coach, despite some of the challenges, and the fact that he went from coach and stayed in the organization, and Danny Ainge, who I put on a pedestal, it's just beautiful how the whole thing has transpired. Like, he's where he belongs. It's a great thing for Brad Stevens' life. It still surprises me a little bit because I do believe him so much as a teacher of the game of basketball. It surprises me a little bit that he's not a head coach. But yeah, it's unbelievable. The fact that Danny Ainge is gone and I feel as though the gentleman in his seat is as capable. I'm shocked to say that.
Yeah, and he's done a great job of not only navigating the cap, but I mean, come on. When Brad Stevens found a way to get Derrick White, Drew Holiday, the Jays, and freaking Porzingis all on the same roster. Now, admittedly, Wyc Grousbeck was willing to pay the freight in terms of the couple years of the tax and the salary or whatnot, but it just goes to show what that guy can put together. And I think we all knew it was going to be a short run and a short window, but holy shit. I mean, you talk about turning around our thought process where, Jay, I think you said earlier, and you're right, for some people it was kind of okay, I'll be back when Tatum's back in 2026 type year. And no, they played exciting basketball. Right now, Missoula's probably coach of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I can't see why not. I'm sure there's some other candidates that deserve consideration. The fact that the Detroit Pistons are the team in the East that really scares me. I can't even believe I'm saying those words, but that really is the case. A few weeks ago, if you had asked me, I would have said I just don't think the Celtics can even compete with the New York Knicks. The Knicks have been inconsistent. I I don't know how much I believe in the Celtics. I think it will depend on Jayson Tatum. You know, if Jayson Tatum comes back and really is able to provide that presence on the defensive side, that's where I miss him the most, on the defensive glass, and just seeing he is such a good defender. And that's what I think makes Jaylen and Jayson so special, is that they both do it on both ends. But I you know, if Jayson Tatum comes back and is pretty close to himself, you know, maybe they have a shot. But I think that Detroit team is going all the way to the finals.
Well, here's the thing for me with Detroit, okay? And everybody will throw Oklahoma City in my face. But over the history of the NBA, it's normally a team like the Pistons might get to an East Finals, and then they end up going against a veteran team who know what they're doing, how to handle it, how to pace themselves, things of that nature. That's why I think Detroit can go far. Now look,
close.
Now, here's the thing. If it's Detroit matched up against Cleveland, I'd probably go Detroit. But I don't think Detroit is beating Boston or New York in an Eastern Conference Finals. And that's where I don't know if Cade Cunningham has another level to his game to be able to make up for what will be a massive lack of experience in big spots like that, where it becomes more than just about your superstar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's my biggest question for Detroit. Cleveland pulled a Jets move by going and getting James Harden. Like, that's what the Jets would do. Seriously. Like, they went, okay, now we'll put him with Donovan Mitchell. That guy hasn't won anything. That sumbitch has shot twice in a second half in a closeout game 6 at home before. Like, get out of here about James Harden wanting to win or anything like that. Cleveland told me everything I needed to know about them when they went and got James Harden. Maybe I'll end up eating my words, but I don't think so. James Harden has never let me down before, and I don't expect him to do it now. And I think if it were straight up Boston and New York, that's the toughest matchup for the Celtics. But this year, I think they're better equipped to be able to deal with them, because you're not relying on Porzingis to be that unicorn as much. You're going to attack New York a little differently with this team versus what you had last year. But I asked a member when I did my my first VSiN show on Sunday.
How was that, by the way?
In that spot, it was good. We had on one of the real basketball degenerati. And I said, if Tatum comes back, how much do you what does that do to the line, especially for the C's in the East? And his theory is it's already baked into the number. So the number we're seeing right now, there is the expectation that ultimately Tatum is coming back in some way, shape, or form. So the official announcement won't move the number unless there's some sort of land rush of people. But if there's a bunch of people sitting on the Celtics, they're going to get him now, because the number would only get smaller in terms of the odds. So it's kind of baked in. So the Celtics at plus 380 to win the East on DraftKings is a pretty live bet right now, I think.
Yeah, gosh, it really is interesting. You know, so in terms of when Tatum could potentially come back, right? They got a couple primetime games coming up. March 1st, Sunday versus the 76ers. March 6th, Friday versus the Mavericks. Both home games, both primetime. Perhaps those. I can't believe the Celtics are actually in the conversation this year. And maybe it's because the Knicks, you know, and it is such a long season, right? It's like the Knicks, right? A little bit of the choppiness, a little bit of the lull. Can they come out of that perhaps? I don't believe in Cleveland whatsoever. But I also think in this particular sport, right? A team like the Detroit Pistons, we talk about the season being too long, but if they put this 82 games together and put themselves in that position to be the 1 seed, I believe in them more than I believe in Cleveland, you know? So I think ultimately for Boston, it would be nice to be able to not have to play Detroit and New York. I think that would be too much, but could they beat one of those teams? I think they could. Cleveland just doesn't scare me. And I do think Tatum might have said, I'm not going to be the same. I think by the time, if he comes back early March, I think we're going to see a very well-oiled machine out of number 0 by the time the postseason comes around.
Very interesting, Cody. Just threw in our chat. Can you guess the two teams with better Kalshi odds than Celtics to win it all? OKC is the top. Denver would be next, is at least I think.
Yeah,
I think it goes
Antonio.
Denver then.
San Antonio may be too young, but they beat OKC every time they play them, it seems.
No, it does. No, that's it. You know what? The way that last year the Knicks were a problem for the Celtics, that's what Oklahoma City has on their hands with San Antonio. No question.
Yep. I think it is fascinating how at the beginning of the season, everyone talking about OKC, they're only going to lose 8 games. Right? Be careful, right? I mean, it's like and it's really difficult to defend your title. So I wouldn't pencil them in quite yet.
Can I give you, because I was just looking at the schedule here, and I know you and I talked last week here on Gas about, if Tatum came back April 1st, there's basically a game every other night.
Yep.
Because you're not going to bring him. Would you agree with me? You're not going to bring him back against Minnesota. You're not bringing him back against Oklahoma City. Friday, March 27th, they play Atlanta. And Atlanta blows. And they blew up their team and stuff like that. Because you're not going to bring him in. You're not, like, hey, here's Golden State coming to town. Go run around and, chase Steph Curry and things of that nature. So if it's sooner than later, it would be great.
I feel like it's gonna be, wouldn't you
really
take under March 27th?
No,
under, you take over.
I would say, yeah. I don't think it's a 20 game runway. I don't. I think it's closer to a 10 game runway.
Fair.
Now, again, maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's still some mental hurdles for Tatum to jump over. And that's why I give him, say, where are we at right now? We're at February 17th. That is a long time. That's 4 more weeks. That's another month. That is a while. So maybe that run of like March 8th, March 10th. Yeah, but that's Cleveland, San Antonio, Washington.
These mental hurdles, Gresh. Don't you feel like getting back out there is the best way? Because I agree. I understand the mental, right? The Achilles is going to feel tight. It's not going to feel the same for a while, right? So there's some mental components to it. But gosh, if they intend to have him come back and they feel as though there's not too much risk, I would think the best possible chance to get that mental in the right place is to get back out there and play real games against real competition.
Right. I don't disagree with that. I just don't know if Tatum believes that. That's because I'm with you. It would be, hey, if you're close, get back. Plus the other thing too is, and I brought it up, what's his role? Like, is Tatum? Here's the thing. I really wonder if in Tatum's mind, he wants to come back and, hey, I might only play 30 minutes, but I'm not coming off the bench type thing. Like if he's open to that, to where maybe he's okay playing 15 minutes, then 18, then 21, and do a ramp up, then I could see him coming back earlier. I think in the mind of Tatum, it's I got to get back really close to where I am because there's going to be big expectations. So that's why I think he might take a little bit longer to make sure that when he comes back, it's Jayson Tatum's in the starting lineup, not Jayson Tatum has been activated and he's available for 15 minutes tonight and it's Joe Mazzulla's dealer's choice.
Yep.
Like I feel like there's the pride part of my thought process when it comes to Tatum, where with Tatum, there's going to be the pride of, when I come back, I need to be pretty close to what I am because that's what people are going to expect. And by the way, he's correct in thinking that is exactly how he will be judged. Ask Will Campbell what it's like to be judged. One goddamn game, people want to throw him out. It's insane.
I know that Tatum wants to get back close to where he was, but I also don't think he's too prideful to come off the bench at the beginning if that's what needs to happen for his injury. I do not believe that
I hope that is the case.
I don't think it would be. I think ultimately, if he's going to ramp up for the postseason, it's hard for me to imagine that their plan wouldn't be for him to maybe start as the postseason approaches, right? If they start him on the bench, but you can be sure that Brad Stevens and all the doctors, right? I said last week, I think Sham said there's going to be 12 people that are part of this decision-making process. I'm sure they've made a lot of these decisions right now, and they probably have a very well-executed plan, and we're just not privy to that information. But it's very exciting that Tatum has a chance to come back to a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference that really does have a chance to make a run. And if you get into the finals, who knows?
You're right. I mean, who knows? Because you're a different matchup than for all these teams, you're a different matchup than what you are right now. And that makes it unique. We're really, you know what, I'm talking myself into and getting excited for when they say the playoffs are the second season. It really will be for us because Tatum will be there, right? Like we've gone through. Yeah, it'll feel very different to us in watching the playoffs. It really will be a second season.
And I also think the loss last year, right? Not defending
no
your
doubt,
title, right? And learning from that. We talk about what the Patriots are going to hopefully learn from the loss, right? So I think, you can be sure Jaylen Brown is very hungry to get back to where they were, and same with Tatum. And so, look, the one thing I will say is like, when Mazzulla talks about these superstars, right? Like, don't you get the sense that Brown and Tatum are not drinking a lot of alcohol or they're treating their bodies the right way, right? Like these guys just are the right type of superstars. It's not going to shock me at all if Jayson Tatum is very, very physically ready to come back and has done everything to be in the best possible position to help this team win a chip this year.
He's not on the Marvin Harrison plan of eating a Big Mac every day.
Right. I mean, look at the way both of them have developed their physiques as they've gotten
they've done it. If there's one thing to be admired about both of those guys, it's how they've gone about growing their bodies. Look at them both when they were drafted and look at them now. Like Jayson Tatum has deltoids, whereas before,
right,
it didn't look like he had any shoulders. All right, let's slide in a little Patriots here, because now begins the questions of how do you build the best roster for 2026. I heard all of the video gamers on Boston Sports Radio be like, you should go get Tyreek Hill. That's the James Harden of the NFL. Like, seriously, you're not bringing that guy here, but nevertheless, there will be some names out there. There will be some sneaky free agents, but I know we visited this last week, but can we start with the biggest name that's connected to New England out there? Yes, Maxx Crosby said he would like to play for Mike Vrabel someday. So, of course, that's got everybody running crazy that New England might jump for this guy. I believe, just to kind of reiterate last week, I do believe you and I are sharing a brain that it'd be a really tough look for Tom Brady, the owner or the front-facing owner of the Raiders, to look at his fans and say, yes, we have the number one pick. And oh, by the way, I am trading your favorite player to my old team.
This market, right? If you're telling me 50% he stays with Vegas, like, I'm going to go to the window. I'm going to go on Kalshi and invest in that, right? The Raiders promoted their defensive line coach and run game coordinator, Rob Leonard, to defensive coordinator on Sunday. That's Maxx Crosby's boy. I know we talked about this last week. Hey, little fade to black for you. There's no way, Gresh, Maxx Crosby leaves. There's just no way. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Yes, he was sour. He wanted to play the last 2 games of the regular season. He was pissed about that. And there was a little chirp, but I think he's over it at this point and probably realizes that the organization's decision wasn't necessarily fully to sort of shut him down and maybe try, like, he wants to be there. They want him there. And I just think that particular defensive coordinator signing to me is the last straw. I just don't think he goes anywhere. It's much ado about nothing. There's no way they trade that man. I just don't think so. I put him at a very, 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 very elite level. I put him above Michael Parsons. I really do, because the leadership component, the drive in that man, I really put him on a pedestal. He'd be my first choice among free agents for the Patriots, and I think there's no chance he leaves Las Vegas.
You know what? If I were advising Maxx Crosby, Jay, you know what I would have handed him? A calculator.
Yep.
And I would have said, brother, do your taxes in Nevada, and then figure out what they would be in Massachusetts. And then shut up about coming to New England, because, brother, you would lose like $3.5 million. It's insane how much that guy would get whacked. That's the first thing that I would do. And then I'd be like, man, you're in a good spot. The city loves you. The team loves you. You're getting paid well. Go, try to be a part of that rebuild. And I really wonder, once these players meet Fernando Mendoza, how much their excitement level kind of picks up, just because, he may not be the most talented guy. He may not throw it the farthest, run the fastest, all that kind of stuff. There is a spirit about that dude.
Yes.
And that's really what he got Indiana to believe, because he believed and his head coach believed. And that's what they need out there in Vegas right now. They need somebody to make them believe that they at least got a shot of building something, so those people don't keep bailing out. And it would be so counterintuitive to trade a guy like Maxx Crosby. Let's start here, okay? I wanted to get the big name out of the way, but let's start here. What's your biggest need for this team?
It's definitely offensive line. And during this regular season, I think there were moments where the offensive line, we kind of ignored it because they were just winning football games, but they were really bad through stretches. You talk about the game where, they blew out the Browns, but Myles Garrett had 5 sacks. It does feel like a different free agent market, right? Milton Williams was sort of that top guy last season. Guy like Tyler Lindenbaum, the Ravens center, a lot of people think he may go as a free agent to the Giants with Coach Harbaugh, but he was drafted in 2022 by Baltimore, first round pick 25 out of Iowa. He would really be my top target. I understand maybe they drafted Jared Wilson last year with the idea of him being a center, but I think O-line is the biggest need. I like Kyle Pitts a lot more than you do as a tight end, potentially Gresh, but ultimately their biggest need to me is offensive line 1,000,000%, because I'm not sold on Will Campbell. I'm not sold on Morgan Moses. I'm not even sold on Nwenu. I think that whole line they kind of overachieved in the regular season and became who they were in the postseason. I think it's a little bit of a nightmare there. So that's the need for me.
Yeah, when you think of when you look at this draft relative to the offensive linemen and the first round talent that is there, there's going to be some tackles that'll go early, but I wonder if they'll be tickled at all by maybe another defensive lineman, as crazy as that sounds, and adding just more beef to the middle. Plus, where's the organization have a Christian Barmore right now? I think that's a real question that needs to be answered with some of
Where do you think they're at with him?
I don't think they love him. Mm-hmm. I don't think they love him. And I think some of the off-field stuff has been a little concerning. But you don't win with choir boys. You need some pricks. So, I'm not anti-Barmore at all, but I'm just wondering from their end, do they like any linebackers in this draft?
Hope so.
Or are their versions of linebackers going to be, let's draft the second safety on the board who is 6'2" and 210? You know what I mean? And then and look at and maybe putting someone in there that way. Let me give you a little name at wide receiver. There's a kid at UConn, Jay. His name is Skylar Bell. Now, this dude played at UConn, right? Maybe not the best competition. Was a unanimous first team All-American. This is a guy, but he's flying under the radar a little bit because, again, he played at UConn. Now, that UConn quarterback, Fagnano, Fagnano, Joe Fagnano, I think it is. People are going to end up taking a liking to him because he's one of these guys who ran pro style stuff. Same thing with Skylar Bell, is probably a late third rounder. So if they are going to do something a wide receiver, I wonder if it's more of a kid like that, because right now you have Diggs. You'd love to add a 1, but really what you probably need is a little more depth. You know what I mean? And I wonder if in the middle rounds, that's where they kind of go wide receiver. Cause I'm feeling it like you. I think line of scrimmage on both sides is going to be tended to pretty early in this draft.
Maybe I misvalue the wide receiver position, but I look at it as having some depth. Matt Collins is going to be back, I believe. I understand he's not a 1. but I really believe Kyle Williams can make a big jump. I feel like he was sort of playing behind Booty all year, and it was tough to sort of crack the roster. I mean, look, a guy like Mike Evans, who's a free agent, who's probably staying put. I saw one guy say Mike Evans to the Buffalo Bills. That fascinates me. Even though he's had some durability issues lately, 1,000 yards every year, a guy like Mike Evans is more appealing to me than a guy like AJ Brown, just because I think they're young at the position in a way, and maybe having a veteran there. I understand Diggs is there, but I don't know. The wide receiver position, I think they're sneaky deep, Gresh. I would rather than maybe go for that top line dude rather than the depth. But certainly if you can hit a home run in the draft and get that sort of slot guy potentially, is this guy Sky Bell a slot guy or is he a deep threat?
Bell, he's played a little bit of everything. He was like, I remember when Mark Whipple was at UMass, he had Andy Isabella, who was a second-round pick. And normally Izzy'd be on the outside, and then all of a sudden they'd motion him, and you're like, oh, he's in the slot. Here he goes. And they knew they had the matchup, and they could make the play. There was a little bit of that going on at UConn. I think there might be I think there might be a free agent buy once again on the offensive line.
Yeah.
When I look at the interior group of the O-line, because I mentioned that I think Wilson can slide to center if you find the right guard, or you can leave him there if you find the center that you really want. The interior part of this offensive line class this year, it's you either got to jump early or not at all. Like you're either jumping early or you're in the middle rounds. And I wonder if that might precipitate a buy along the offensive line in free agency. Now, here's where this class is kind of where I think the class is loaded within like the Patriots' top 2 picks, Jay, I'm talking about. Is the defensive line group. That's why I bring it up.
Interesting.
Even more than the edge guys, where there are edge guys. I don't know if New England is for every edge player, if you know what I mean. Plus, why would you dick around with what Kayvon Chason did this year? Maybe you try to find somebody on the other side, but if you're going to have Milton Williams and Barmore there, Chason ate plenty and played really well for this team.
He's going to get a bag, I think.
I mean, he might, but they would also have the edge to be able to keep him. I mean, I don't know how many teams will look at Chason and say, oh, that's what he really is, or that's what he really was for them. Meaning that I don't know if there's enough production for. It's not like a wide receiver who kind of tears up, you know what I mean? And then in year 4, they blow it out of the water and they go get the big money. I don't know if that's there for Chason, but nevertheless, there are a lot of interesting defensive line prospects in this draft. I'd love for them to come away with a linebacker.
They did a really nice job in the draft last year and not at the top. I think Trevion Henderson, we'll see how his career plays out. But even Woodson, the safety, who they really drafted and thought he would be a starter all along.
Great job.
The linebacking position, though, Gresh, you talked about it a lot this year.
Yeah,
you were not as big of a fan of Spillane as a lot of us were. I think when you look a little closer into every down for Robert Spillane. So I think that is a big need as well.
Do you what do you have Red Sox related? Are you riding the roller coaster just yet?
Absolutely. And I think there's 2 reasons. Alex Cora and Garrett Crochet, right? Garrett Crochet is, he's like a 1+. He's like better than an ace because he's a fucking dog and he's a big man and he's not frail like Max Fried, So I think Garrett Crochet carried them last year. I think he's going to continue to do so. I don't know Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez, how good they'll be. Suarez was certainly good in the postseason for Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm optimistic, but I'm always optimistic because of Alex Cora. I think that he has a great chance to make them great. And look, I know that Alex Bregman isn't walking through that door, but he was really excited about the young talent on this team. I like that Devers isn't there. So I'm really excited. Look, they made the playoffs last year. was there something I saw that they're minus 195 to make the postseason? I don't like that at all. I would fade the Red Sox in terms of making the playoffs, but I'm excited to see what Alex Cora can do with them. And I do think their rotation will be better than it was last season. And that to me is always what matters most.
All I think of was Lou Brown from Major League. You run like Mays, but you hit like shit. That's the big thing for me is how are they going to generate runs? I mean, this is really going to go back to not so much station to station baseball, but find a way to get on, hope we can steal a bag and then get a timely hit. There's a lot of pressure, I think, on Roman Anthony going into this year. I think Red Sox fans are expecting him to do massive things, and he might have he might end up having, Jay, a really nice year. Like, you know, if he hits 285 and hits 20 bombs and drives in 80, 85 runs, and you remind yourself that he's a young player, that's a good baseline for a guy like that. However, I think people think this is, you know, Manny Ramirez and that he's going to be the guy who is going to be in the middle of this lineup for years to come. I'm with you. You can't deny that the rotation is better. But do they have the defense behind that pitching?
Good question.
That I think is still a question, especially at second base.
So if Roman Anthony's healthy, I would be extremely disappointed if he doesn't blow up this season. I think he put on 15 pounds of muscle. I mean, I think he really could carry this team. The protection around him in the lineup, you know, are you going to get as good a year from Trevor Story as you got last year down the stretch where he started ice cold and then was really, really solid, you know? So I think that there are a lot of questions around this, but Alex Bregman missed a ton of games, wasn't really himself when he came back. So ultimately, I think hopefully there can be a surprise of some sort, but yeah, I can't wait to ride the roller coaster. And I will say, like, when it comes down to it, last season, right? Every fifth day when you have that Garrett Crochet start, every fifth day, it does give you a little bit of juice. It reminded me of back when Pedro Martinez was at the front of that rotation. And so I love that Alex Cora is still running the show here. And I think while I'm surprised at that minus 195 number, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think there's a lot of noise around this ball club, which I love. I think they're all going to be playing for one another. You know, I'm a big intangible guy. I think there's going to be be a high level of chemistry. And I think that April's important.
Yeah, Roman Anthony, now they got a little money in his pocket. They give him the good roids. I know that was ridiculous, but you know what? Hey, listen, that's how you really, the way it goes in baseball is you get jacked up to have the big year when you're going into free agency. I don't love the whole guys playing in the World Baseball Classic. I just
when
I
is
don't
it
know.
coming up?
Yeah, it's this preseason basically.
Yeah,
it'll be this spring training.
I don't give a fuck. I wish I could. It's a 162 game season. It's like you want to play in the Baseball Classic, and it just is what it is. I know guys have gotten hurt in that in the past, but you know, at least the Red Sox have some guys that are being considered for it. But I think the ceiling is very high for this Red Sox team, depending on how the rotation shakes out. I mean, if Brian Bello has a good year, that could vault this team, right? I mean, if he, you know, I don't know, do you look at him as a number 3 starter, number 4 starter? Well, he probably looks at himself as a high 2, you know, so.
Oh, he thinks he's Pedro Martinez. So we'll just, we'll let that one go from there.
But I'm excited. So I wanted to ask you,
yeah, please.
I want to ask you quickly about the UFC fights this weekend, but one thing that Cody had off the top that I just want to ask you, is Derrick White trying to get a $10 million donation from Vucevic for that number?
I do not believe so. I haven't heard anything of that being real.
But what I would say is Vucevic, that's Derrick White's fucking championship number. Get the fuck out of here. Don't give a fuck who you are, how much you make, how long you've been there.
It's the stupidest thing ever.
Okay,
it really
so
is.
White, I guess he tried to give him $5 million, whatever.
So yeah, revealed how Vucevic attempted to pay $5 million for the number 9 jersey. That's insane. Period. Like that's the whole number thing is stupid anyway. You know what it is? You know what the real culprit is in the whole number deal? Jewelry.
because they have jewelry that they wear with their number on it, and they don't.
Yeah, think about it.
Hilarious.
I mean, you're gonna pay a ton of money so that you don't have to go pay a ton of money to get all your jewelry redone in a different number.
It's hilarious. You see guys like Michael Jordan and LeBron switch up their number. I saw a clip from the other day where Michael Jordan was wearing a number 12 jersey in a game back in the day because there was an issue with his 23. Who gives a fuck?
I love it, dude. You mentioned Michael Jordan real quick. His racer won the Daytona 500 this weekend.
Yes.
And in the offseason, Jordan sued the shit out of NASCAR and just whooped him in court. So it was a real, like honest to God. So his racer, Tyler Reddick, is like maybe 5'2". He is like cradling Reddick in one arm. And I literally thought he was going to look at the NASCAR people and just be like, F you. Well, one member of the France family who owns NASCAR came over and were like sucking up to Jordan or whatever. Like, hey, congratulations. Your guy did a great job. Da, da, da. You beat the crap out of us in court. And Jordan, he's so competitive on everything.
Oh,
he
and
was
for that team.
Oh, he was like a puppy.
For that team to have MJ right next to you to hoist that trophy.
Dude, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Yes.
Seeing Michael Jordan hoist a trophy did something incredible inside of me.
Isn't it awesome? Like to see that guy now. And by the way, he's got, $100 million on the schedule every year. He's bringing in enough money to be able to fund whatever in the world it is that he wants. What am I seeing about Rousey versus Carano on Netflix in May?
So Ronda Rousey ending her 10-year retirement, going to face Gina Carano in an MMA fight in LA, May 16th. Jake Paul's MVP promotions. Both ladies probably getting a fucking bag, huh?
You would think so.
At least 10 million each, I would think. Probably I'm way underestimating it.
No, that's probably
sound about right. I mean,
probably not far off.
It's like I know it's not Canelo Crawford, but it's like, what are these guys? There's so much money, right, involved in these. I going to be massively underviewed, Cody says. Yeah, for that could be fair, but they're going to make a bag, and good for them. This weekend, Sean Strickland, Fluffy Hernandez. I'm excited for that fight. I'm really excited to see Sean Strickland compete again. Any thoughts on your boys? You guys going to be gambling or what?
Yeah, we're probably leaning Strickland would be my guess. It is exciting.
Plus 230, right?
Well, it is exciting to see him get back into the ring, but I mean, listen, go ahead and underestimate Anthony Hernandez. God bless you on that one. I'll tell you who we're in on unanimously, the boys and I. Udos Medic over Jeff Neal. Yeah. Are you in on that too?
So, I don't bet MMA. Jeff Neal had a crazy last 5 years. For those who didn't see it, I think there was an interview on Home of Fight. But I think like some crazy drug and substance abuse issues over the last 5 years since COVID. And I think he's been clean for 100 days.
Okay.
That's huge. Jeff Neal is such a big wild card that if he's in a good place, there's a reason why you're seeing that minus 205 by his name. I don't know how I feel about the doctor. One fight that's fascinating to me is Ramiz Brahimaj versus Punahele Soriano. Know both guys pretty well. Bilal Muhammad knows both guys pretty well. I think both guys have won 3 straight. It's a huge fight for these guys. Close fight, very different styles. I'd be interested to see you sort of where Cody goes. Cody seems to maybe like Phil Rowe as a dog there. Anything else you like, Cody, on this? He likes Zach Reese. I
like Spivak to win the heavyweight bout against I can't say it, against Auntie. How's that?
After a week off, I'm very excited for the UFC. John's actually going to be there in Houston, Texas, which is nice. So I'm excited to watch it. But I think Sean Strickland's maybe live in that main event.
Cody throwing his picks up there. Yeah, I think Strickland is very much live in that main event. I think there's a lot on the line for him, to be quite honest with you. I think he loses. That's where does he then kind of fit in the middleweight division? He's got to keep up with everybody.
Fluffy's dangerous, but he's back with Eric Nixick, Sean Strickland. They've sort of mended whatever was going on there. So we'll see what happens.
Very good stuff, friend. Listen, I know we're all on tight deadlines today. It is noon. We've done an hour. We will Catch you next week here on Gas. Make sure you
Appreciate
subscribe to YouTube at The Real Gresh. Make sure you follow us on social media. I'm at The Real Gresh. He is at Boston Anik. At Cody_Marrow is where you can find Bone on Twitter. We will see you next week.